Welcome to the Truth Crime podcast, where we explore the darkest corners of human nature and the chilling tales of true crime. In today's episode, we dive into the haunting story of Jonathan, a legal advisor whose tragic murder still remains a mystery. As we unravel the details of this case, we also take a closer look at the dangerous effects of keeping bad friends and how toxic relationships can impact our lives in unforeseen ways. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button so you never miss an episode. Join us as we uncover the truth behind this unsettling tale and the important lessons it teaches about friendship and loyalty. The eerie silence of the night was shattered by a strange noise that echoed through the halls of the house. It was a sound that sent chills down the spines of everyone who heard it. The residents of the house rushed to the source of the noise, their hearts racing with anticipation. What they found was a scene that would haunt them forever. Their friend Jonathan lay motionless on the floor, his body battered beyond recognition. The murder weapon, a bloody knife, still lay on his stomach, as if the killer had deliberately left it there. The room was in disarray, but what struck everyone as odd was the inexplicable cleanliness of the scene. There was no sign of struggle, no resistance, no nothing. It was as if Jonathan had willingly surrendered to his fate. The news of the murder spread like wildfire, and soon the entire neighborhood was abuzz with shock and horror. Neighbors who had once thought of their community as a safe haven were now left feeling vulnerable and frightened. Parents held their children a little closer, while others wondered if they should invest in security systems. As the days passed, the neighborhood struggled to come to terms with the incident. Some residents reported seeing suspicious individuals lurking around the area, while others claimed to have heard strange noises in the dead of night. The once peaceful community was now gripped with fear and uncertainty. The local police department worked tirelessly to investigate the murder, but every lead seemed to end in a dead end. The lack of evidence and witnesses only added to the frustration. As the case remained unsolved, the neighborhood was left to wonder if justice would ever be served. Years went by, but the memory of that fateful night lingered. The strange noise, the motionless body, the bloody knife, and the inexplicable cleanliness of the scene continued to haunt the dreams of those who had witnessed the horror. The neighborhood that was once calm and peaceful was now forever changed, a constant reminder that evil can strike at any moment. Their friend, Jonathan, lay motionless on the floor, his body battered beyond recognition. The murder weapon, a bloody knife, still lay on his stomach, as if the killer had deliberately left it there. The room was in disarray, but what struck everyone as odd was the inexplicable cleanliness of the scene. There was no sign of struggle, no resistance, no nothing. It was as if Jonathan had willingly surrendered to his fate. The autopsy revealed even more shocking details. Jonathan had suffered multiple fatal wounds, but there was no evidence of any struggle or resistance. It was as if he had been immobilized, unable to move or defend himself. The killer had struck with precision and speed, leaving no room for error. As the investigation unfolded, detectives were baffled by the lack of evidence. No fingerprints, no DNA, no surveillance footage. It was as if the killer had vanished into thin air. The only clue was a mysterious message scrawled on the wall: "You will never find me." The case remained unsolved, but the memory of that fateful night lingered, haunting the dreams of those who had witnessed the horror. The strange noise, the motionless body, the bloody knife, and the inexplicable cleanliness of the scene continued to taunt them, a grim reminder that justice had not been served. Years went by, but the mystery only deepened. Theories emerged, but none stuck. Suspects were questioned, but none were charged. The case files collected dust, but the memories of that night remained vivid, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike. Years have passed, and the truth about Jonathan's tragic murder remains shrouded in mystery. The investigation may have gone cold, but the public's fascination with the case has never wavered. Theories and speculations continue to swirl, but the facts remain elusive. As we delve into today's story, we're reminded that the passage of time doesn't always bring clarity. Sometimes the truth lies hidden, waiting to be uncovered by a curious mind or a fresh perspective. Before we dive into the details, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. By joining our community, you'll get access to our latest videos, exclusive content, and a deeper dive into the stories that captivate us. Today's story is a poignant reminder that the truth can be elusive, but the search for answers is what drives us forward. So, let's embark on this journey together, and perhaps we'll uncover new insights into the mysterious events surrounding Jonathan's death. This serious case unfolded in the neighborhood of Washington on a sweltering summer night in 2001. Jonathan, a young, busy legal advisor, was working late into the night. After finishing work, Jonathan planned to attend a gathering at the home of his close friend, Joe, instead of returning home to his wife. Around 10:30 p.m., Jonathan called Joe to inform him that he had left the office and was on his way. He then got into his car and drove directly to the area where Joe and a few other friends were hosting a casual gathering. According to plan, Jonathan intended to arrive within an hour and had confirmed this with his friends. About 90 minutes later, Jonathan arrived at the party. Although the atmosphere was lively, the gathering ended earlier than expected due to everyone's fatigue. The night had started out with such promise. The music was pulsating, the laughter was contagious, and the conversation was flowing freely. But as the hours wore on, the energy began to wane. Yawns became more frequent, eyelids grew heavy, and the once lively chatter dwindled to mere whispers. Despite the best efforts of the host to keep the party going, it was clear that the guests were running on fumes. The exhaustion was palpable, and eventually, the night drew to a close much earlier than anyone had anticipated. As the last stragglers said their goodbyes and headed out into the night, the host couldn't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. It had been a fun night, but it seemed like the fatigue had gotten the better of everyone. Little did they know, however, that the night's early conclusion would prove to be a blessing in disguise. For as they all drifted off to sleep, they were unaware of the strange occurrences that would begin to unfold in the shadows, hidden from prying eyes. How was that? I tried to create a mysterious and intriguing atmosphere while still incorporating the idea of the gathering ending early due to fatigue. Shortly after, everyone dispersed to their rooms to rest. The tranquility of the summer night was abruptly shattered by a loud scream coming from Jonathan's room. His friends rushed over, and upon entering the room, they were horrified to find Jonathan motionless on the bed with 3 deep stab wounds and a family kitchen knife still lodged in his abdomen. Zaborski, one of Jonathan's friends, quickly called 911, tearfully reporting that an unknown intruder had broken into the house and attacked his friend. He also mentioned hearing the doorbell ring before Jonathan's scream. Zaborski urgently pleaded with the police to come immediately, as Jonathan's condition was critical. At 11:54 p.m., police and paramedics arrived at the scene. Jonathan's 3 friends were still in their rooms, terrified and stunned by the incident. Jonathan was swiftly taken to George Washington University Hospital, but he was pronounced dead at 12:24. Jonathan, born in 1974 in Brooklyn, was of both Chinese and American descent. His father, William, was a retired technology director for a prominent American bank, and his mother, Amy, worked at the library of St. Edmund's School. Jonathan had always been an outstanding student, attending the school where his mother worked. He graduated with honors from Xaverian High School in Bay Ridge and went on to study as a legal advisor at the University of Pennsylvania, where he served as an editor for the school's magazine. After graduating from university in 1999, Jonathan clerked for Judge Raymond A. Jackson at the federal court in Virginia. He later specialized in real estate development as a legal advisor at the prestigious international firm Covington Burling in Washington. In June 2003, Jonathan married Kathy Yu, who was just as intelligent and ambitious as her husband. Despite their youth, both were quite successful in their careers. On the evening of August 2, 2006, due to a seminar in Washington, Jonathan informed his wife that he would not be returning home but would stay at a friend's place instead. That was the last time Kathy received a call from Jonathan, who was brutally murdered that night. On that evening, Jonathan attended a gathering with his 3 friends Joe, Victor Zaborski, and Dylan Ward, all of whom were close to him. According to their statements, before Jonathan arrived, Zaborski had just returned from a business trip, while Price and Ward were preparing food for the party. The evening was simple and ended before 11 p.m. Joe and Zaborski went to their bedroom on the 3rd floor, while Ward returned to his room on the 2nd floor, read for a while, took a sleeping pill, and then went to bed. Ward mentioned hearing the shower running from the bathroom down the hall, as Jonathan had a habit of showering before bed no matter the hour. Zaborski noted that the house had a security system on the front door that would sound if opened from the outside. Joe also mentioned that the basement of the house was rented to a student named Sarah Morgan, who often came home late, so hearing the alarm at night wasn't unusual. However, on the night of the incident, Sarah was not home. When the three friends rushed to Jonathan's room, they were horrified to find him in his bed, murdered. According to their statements, it appeared that Jonathan had been attacked by an intruder. However, the police noticed discrepancies that raised suspicions about the scene and the testimonies provided. Jonathan was found on the bed, dressed in a t-shirt and shorts. His wallet and watch were left untouched, next to another kitchen knife, creating a scene full of mystery. Investigators suspected that Jonathan might have been stabbed before being placed on the bed. This theory was supported by the observation that the stab wounds were deep, but there wasn't much blood around them, suggesting someone had tried to clean up the scene. Adding to the mystery, there were no signs of forced entry or burglary. Jonathan's BlackBerry phone was still there with an unsent message to his wife at 11:05 p.m., stating he'd just finished showering and was about to go to bed. 2 minutes later, he sent an email to a colleague scheduling lunch for the next day. However, neither the message nor email was sent, raising suspicions during the investigation. Detective Jameson scrutinized the evidence, her mind racing with possibilities. The message and email supposedly sent by Jonathan seemed too convenient, too calculated. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were planted to throw the investigation off track. If Jonathan sent the message at 11:05 p.m. and the email at 11:07 p.m., that leaves a narrow window of time for the perpetrator to act, she said, turning to her partner, Detective Rodriguez. Exactly, Rodriguez replied. About 40 minutes. That's a tight timeline, but it's doable, especially if our perpetrator is cold and calculating. Jameson nodded, her eyes narrowing, which would suggest premeditation. This wasn't a crime of passion, it was a carefully planned and executed act. Rodriguez nodded in agreement. And the message and email were likely part of the plan, meant to mislead us and point the finger at Jonathan. Jameson's gaze turned to the crime scene photos on her desk. I want to know more about Jonathan's alibi. Let's re-interview him and see if his story holds up. As they delved deeper into the investigation, Jameson and Rodriguez couldn't shake the feeling that they were dealing with a mastermind, someone who had carefully orchestrated the crime and was now watching them from the shadows, waiting to see if they would take the bait. Detective Jameson's eyes narrowed as she observed the three men sitting in the living room. Victor's tears had subsided, leaving behind a sense of despair, but Joe Price and Dylan Ward's composure was unsettling. Victor's reaction is understandable, Jameson whispered to Rodriguez. But Joe and Dylan's calmness, that's not typical for people who just lost a friend. Rodriguez nodded in agreement. It's almost as if they're hiding something. Adding to the mystery, there were no signs of forced entry or burglary. Jonathan's BlackBerry phone was still there with an unsent message to his wife at 11:05 p.m., stating he'd just finished showering and was about to go to bed. 2 minutes later, he sent an email to a colleague scheduling lunch for the next day. However, neither the message nor email was sent, raising suspicions during the investigation. Adding to the mystery, there were no signs of forced entry or burglary. Jonathan's BlackBerry phone was still there with an unsent message to his wife at 11:05 p.m., stating he'd just finished showering and was about to go to bed. 2 minutes later, he sent an email to a colleague scheduling lunch for the next day. However, neither the message nor email was sent, raising suspicions during the investigation. Detective Jameson scrutinized the evidence, her mind racing with possibilities. The message and email supposedly sent by Jonathan seemed too convenient, too calculated. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were planted to throw the investigation off track. If Jonathan sent the message at 11:05 p.m. and the email at 11:07 p.m., that leaves a narrow window of time for the perpetrator to act, she said, turning to her partner, Detective Rodriguez. As they continued questioning, Jameson noticed inconsistencies in Joe and Dylan's alibis. Small discrepancies that, on their own, meant little, but together raised suspicions. Let's dig deeper into their backgrounds, Jameson said, her mind racing with possibilities. I want to know if they had any motives to harm Jonathan. Rodriguez nodded, his eyes locked on Joe and Dylan. I'll start looking into their financials, see if they had any conflicts with Jonathan. As they dug deeper, they discovered a web of secrets and lies. Joe had been embezzling funds from Jonathan's company, and Dylan had a history of violent outbursts. Jameson's eyes locked onto Joe and Dylan, her gut telling her they were involved. Let's bring them in for further questioning. The investigation had just taken a dark and unexpected turn. Jonathan's death was no longer a random act of violence, but a calculated murder, and those closest to him were now prime suspects. Detective Jameson watched as the forensic team sprayed the specialized chemical, luminol, across the bathroom floor. The dimly lit room was suddenly illuminated by a faint blue glow, revealing a tiny bloodstain on the bath towel. "Bag that towel," Jameson instructed, her voice firm. "I want it analyzed ASAP." Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "That's Joe Price's towel, isn't it?" Jameson nodded grimly. "The very same." "This changes things. Let's bring Joe, Dylan, and Victor back in for questioning." As they re-questioned the trio, Jameson noticed Joe's nervousness. He fidgeted in his seat, avoiding eye contact. "So Joe," Jameson began, her tone firm but controlled. "Care to explain why your bath towel has a bloodstain on it?" Joe hesitated before speaking, his voice trembling. I must have cut myself shaving." Jameson raised a skeptical eyebrow. "With no other signs of injury?" Joe's eyes darted around the room before settling on the floor. Rodriguez leaned forward, his voice firm. "Joe, we need the truth. Was it an accident? Did you and your friends have a falling out?" Joe's eyes flashed with fear before he looked away, his silence speaking volumes. The investigation had just taken a critical turn. The faint bloodstain on Joe's towel had cracked open a web of secrets, and Jameson was determined to expose the truth behind Jonathan's tragic death. As the investigation continued, detectives delved deeper into the intricate web of relationships between Joe, Victor, and Dylan. They discovered a tangled history of alliances, rivalries, and secrets, which only added to the suspicion surrounding Jonathan's death. "It's like peeling an onion," Jameson said, frustration etched on her face. "Every layer we uncover reveals more complexity." Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "These guys are like a puzzle, and we're still missing pieces." The media frenzy surrounding the case intensified, with speculation and theories spreading like wildfire. The public was captivated by the enigmatic trio and their potential involvement in Jonathan's tragic demise. "Police baffled by complex web of relationships," headlines screamed. "New evidence points to deeper conspiracy," others claimed. Despite the mounting pressure, Jameson and Rodriguez remained focused on finding concrete evidence. They knew that without it, the case would remain a tantalizing mystery, forever shrouded in doubt. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation dragged on, with the trio's secrets and lies continuing to tantalize the public. The truth, much like the elusive pieces of the puzzle, remained just out of reach. "We need a breakthrough," Jameson said, her determination unwavering. "Let's keep digging until we uncover the truth behind Jonathan's death." The case had become an obsession, a puzzle that Jameson and Rodriguez were determined to solve, no matter the cost. Little did they know, the truth was far more sinister than they could have ever imagined. The enduring mystery, the investigation into Jonathan's murder, had been one of the most extensive and publicized in Washington's history. Yet, despite the tireless efforts of detectives and the flood of tips and theories, the case remained a haunting mystery. Years had passed since that fateful night, but the pain and uncertainty still lingered for Jonathan's loved ones. His family and friends had hoped for closure, but the elusive truth had only led to more questions. Detective Jameson, now retired, still couldn't shake the feeling that they had missed something crucial. She had spent countless hours poring over the evidence, re-interviewing witnesses, and exploring new leads, but the case remained unsolved. The media had long since moved on to other sensational crimes, but the public's fascination with Jonathan's murder endured. Armchair detectives and true crime enthusiasts continued to speculate and theorize, but the truth remained elusive. As the anniversary of Jonathan's death approached, his family and friends gathered to remember him. They shared stories, tears, and laughter, but the ache of not knowing who had taken his life still lingered. In the shadows, a figure watched the gathering with interest. Someone who had been there that night, someone who knew the truth. But they remained silent, letting the mystery endure. The investigation may have gone cold, but the memory of Jonathan's life and the pain of his death continued to haunt those left behind. The search for answers would never truly end, and the mystery would forever be a part of Washington's dark and troubled history. Touch the notification button and subscribe for more information.